What if I told you the richest sports league on earth wasn't a historical accident? What if I said it was a power grab? A secret deal made by a handful of men to create a global empire. This is the story of the Premier League. Today, it's a financial monster, a beast that devours global attention and generates billions of pounds annually from its broadcast rights. Its 20 clubs are worth tens of billions. Its global broadcast rights sell for over $10 billion, or is a figure that dwarfs almost every other sports league on the planet. The team that finishes in last place, dead last, earns more television money than the champions of Germany, Italy, or France. This is not normal. This was engineered. Think about the brands. Manchester United, Liverpool, Arsenal. These are not just local football clubs anymore. They are global entertainment companies recognized from New York to Beijing. But it was not always this way. This empire wasn't built over a century of slow, steady growth. It was created in a single moment, a revolution, a hostile takeover. To understand the deal, you must first understand the 1980s. Because in the 1980s, English football was dying. It was broke, broken, and toxic. It was a national disgrace. The stadiums were quite literally crumbling. They were death traps, old wooden stands, rusted chain-link fences, and concrete terraces that were physically falling apart. The sport was violent. Hooliganism wasn't a fringe problem. It was the central story. Every weekend, the news was not about the goals. It was about the arrests, the riots, the bloodshed. Then came the disasters. These were the scars that defined the era, moments of horrifying tragedy that shook the nation. In 1985, the Bradford City fire. A wooden stand caught fire during a match. 56 people died, trapped in the flames. It was a horrific medieval scene. Just weeks later, the Heysel Stadium disaster in Belgium. A wall collapsed during a riot before a European final. 39 fans died. It was chaos broadcast live. As a direct result of Heysel, English clubs were banned from all European competitions. The game was an international pariah, a source of national shame. And then, in 1989, the darkest day. Hillsborough. 97. Liverpool fans were crushed to death in a stadium that was unsafe. The nation was horrified. The public was disgusted. The government, led by Margaret Thatcher, was openly hostile. Football was seen as a slum sport, a disease to be managed, not celebrated. Attendances hit an all-time low. The stadiums were empty, dangerous, and rotting. The game was on its knees, gasping for air, close to extinction. Top players fled the country. They escaped to Italy and Spain, where they were safer, paid better, and respected as professionals, not treated as criminals. English football was bankrupt, morally and financially. But for 5 powerful clubs, this chaos was not a problem. It was an opportunity. These were the Big Five: Manchester United, Liverpool, Arsenal, Everton, and Tottenham Hotspur. They were the biggest clubs, with the largest stadiums and the most fans, and they felt they were being held back. The problem, as they saw it, was the Football League. This was the old system, a structure that had existed for over 100 years. This league had 92 professional clubs, all in one structure, from the first division down to the fourth. It was a shared ecosystem, and the key rule was about money. All 92 clubs shared television revenue. They shared it almost equally. This was the heart of the problem for the elite. This meant a tiny club in the fourth division, with a stadium holding 5,000 people, got nearly the same amount of TV money as the champions, Arsenal or Liverpool. The Big Five hated this. They saw it as socialism. They felt they were the main attraction. They were the product everyone wanted to see. They were subsidizing the smaller clubs. They were, to be fair, completely right. But the old league was built on the idea of solidarity. The Big Five were built on the idea of capitalism. They wanted to break the mold. In 1990, the total TV rights for all 92 clubs were sold for just $44 million. This was for a multi-year deal. It was a pathetically small sum. The Big Five looked at this number, then looked at the booming, glamorous leagues in Italy, and saw it as a joke. They were being left behind in a dying system. They wanted a much bigger slice of the pie. In fact, they didn't just want a bigger slice. They wanted to own the entire bakery. They wanted to control their own destiny. The main architect of this revolution was a man named David Dine, the vice chairman of Arsenal. Dine was a visionary, a businessman first, and a football man second. He knew that television was the future. He knew the sport was a media product, waiting to be packaged and sold to the world. He just needed allies. He met with Martin Edwards, the chairman of Manchester United. They were bitter rivals on the pitch, but they were allies in business. They shared the same frustration. They agreed. The system had to change. It had to be broken. The 92-club structure was a relic that was holding back their potential for global dominance. They brought in the others, the chairman of Liverpool, Everton, and Spurs. The Big Five were united. They had a plan. A simple, brutal plan. They would break away. In 1990, they held a now infamous secret dinner. At this dinner, they invited one other guest, a man who would provide the key to unlock their plan. A man named Greg Dyke. He was the head of London Weekend Television, LWT, a major part of the ITV network, the biggest free-to-air commercial channel in the UK. At that dinner, Dean and Edwards laid out their vision. A new elite league run by the top clubs for the top clubs, a league that would sell its own TV rights. Dyke listened, and he told them it was a brilliant idea. He saw the potential immediately. He wanted in. He reportedly told them, "You form your own league, and we at ITV will buy the rights." This was the secret deal, the handshake that gave the Big Five the confidence to jump. They had a broadcaster lined up. They had a guaranteed payday. The revolution was on. The plan was in motion. In 1991, the clubs published a report, The Blueprint for the Future of Football. It was the breakaway manifesto. It was dressed up as a rescue plan, a way to save the good of the game. It was, in reality, a business plan for a corporate takeover. They needed the approval of the Football Association, the sport's governing body. The FA hated the old Football League, seeing them as a rival for power. So the FA agreed, hoping to gain power. It was a fatal miscalculation that they would come to regret. On May 27, 1992, the Premier League was officially formed. The top 22 clubs of the old First Division resigned en masse from the Football League. It was done. Now, it was time to sell the television rights. The new league's CEO went to the negotiating table. ITV, led by Greg Dyke, was the only serious bidder. They were the partners from the secret dinner. They were the safe bet. They offered $262 million for a 5-year deal. This was a huge increase from the old $44 million deal. The clubs were thrilled. The deal was all but done. The checks were ready to be written. The future seemed set. But they forgot about one man. A man who was not even in the country. A man who was watching from afar. A man named Rupert Murdoch. In 1992, Murdoch's British satellite TV service, BSKIB, or just Sky, was failing. It was a joke in the media. It was reportedly losing millions of pounds every single week. Murdoch was desperate. He needed a reason for people to buy a satellite dish. He needed a battering ram, as he called it. Something to smash into British living rooms. He found it. Live exclusive football. Sky was a tiny player. No one, including the Premier League clubs, took them seriously as a bidder. They were a novelty, a failing experiment. Murdoch learned of the ITV bid. He met with the Premier League's new boss. And he didn't just offer money. He offered a partnership. He offered a vision. He told them ITV would treat them like an old program. He, Murdoch, would make them the future. He would sell the league. He promised American-style sports production. He promised new camera angles, in-depth analysis, and glossy, non-stop promotions. He would make the players superstars. He would make the league a premium product. He would create, as Sky's marketing famously said, a whole new ballgame. It was a seductive pitch, but it needed money. Then came the bid. Sky bid $304 million for 5 years. It was a staggering, unthinkable, irrational amount of money. It blew ITV's $262 million bid out of the water. Murdoch was betting his entire company on this. The clubs were stunned. They now had a choice, a serious choice. Stick with their old safe partner, ITV, the channel everyone in the country watched for free. Or take a massive gamble. A gamble on a new, unproven satellite service, a service that almost no one in the country actually had. A service that cost money every month. They took the money. Of course, they took the money. On May 18, 1992, the deal was done. The secret deal with ITV was dead. The real deal, the one that truly changed the world, was done with Sky. Football had sold its soul to Rupert Murdoch, and the game changed forever. The change was instant. The first Premier League season kicked off in August 1992. Sky launched Monday Night Football. It had fireworks, cheerleaders, and a slick studio. It felt like an event. It felt American. And the money, that $304 million, poured into the 22 clubs. It was a waterfall of cash. Clubs used it to rebuild their stadiums. This was a crucial parallel development. The Hillsborough disaster led to the Taylor Report. This government report mandated that all top-flight stadiums must become all-seater. The old, dangerous standing terraces had to be ripped out. This was expensive. Many clubs couldn't afford it. But suddenly, with the Sky money, they could. The new money paid for the new stadiums. The old, crumbling, dangerous grounds were replaced by shiny, safe, comfortable arenas. But with the new stadiums came new prices. Ticket prices soared. The new seats were not for the old fans. The working-class fans who had supported the clubs for generations were very quickly priced out. A new, wealthier audience arrived. The prawn sandwich brigade, as one player famously called them. The atmosphere changed. The business model changed. Then came the players. The Sky money allowed clubs to compete for the first time with Italy and Spain. They could now sign the world's best. The league's new product needed stars. Eric Cantona arrived at Manchester United, Dennis Bergkamp at Arsenal, Gianfranco Zola at Chelsea. They brought new skills, new glamour, and new global fans. The English game was no longer English. It was a global product, packaged and sold to the world by Sky. Murdoch's plan had worked perfectly. The Premier League was a certified hit. People bought satellite dishes by the million just to watch it. Sky was saved. It became a media behemoth. And the clubs became rich beyond their wildest dreams. The next TV deal was bigger, and the next. The money just kept growing. But what about the 72 clubs left behind? The clubs in the old football league, now renamed? What happened to them? They were promised in 1992 that the new wealth would trickle down. They were told the Premier League was a lifeboat that would raise all ships. It was a lie. The wealth did not trickle down. It created a chasm, a financial canyon that grows wider every single year. The Premier League became an island of unimaginable wealth. The Football League, by comparison, became a sea of debt. A new toxic system was created. Parachute payments. If a club was relegated from the Premier League, it received tens of millions of pounds. This was supposedly to soften the landing. Instead, it destroyed competition. A relegated club was now instantly the richest club in its new league, by a factor of 10. It could outspend everyone and keep its best players. It could often yo-yo straight back up. The leagues became predictable, a closed shop. The gap between the Premier League and the rest became unbridgeable. To even try to compete, smaller clubs spent money they didn't have. They gambled everything on promotion. They took on massive debts, hoping for that one golden ticket. And when they failed, they collapsed. Historic clubs went into administration. Some died completely. Bury FC, a club founded in 1885, a two-time FA Cup winner, was expelled and liquidated in 2019. This was the true cost. The collateral damage of the secret deal. For every Premier League winner, for every new billionaire owner and superstar player, there were dozens of losers left to rot. And the story does not end there. Because the pattern, the one set in 1990, just repeats. The greed is recursive. The Big Five of 1990 eventually became the Big Six. Chelsea and Manchester City, funded by new billionaire owners, joined the elite. And in 2021, these 6 clubs tried to do it all over again. They tried to break away from the very Premier League they had created, the European Super League. It was the 1992 deal, but on a global scale. The same secret meetings, the same American-led finance, the same greed. Why? Because they felt held back. Again, this time by the other 14 clubs in the Premier League. They didn't want to share money with them. They wanted to form a new closed European league, no relegation, no competition, just guaranteed astronomical profits forever. The clubs, by this point, were no longer just clubs. They were global entertainment brands. Their legacy fans in England were an afterthought. Their new real customers were in emerging markets. The Super League was the logical endpoint of the journey started in 1990. This time, it failed. It failed because the fans, the ones who had been priced out and ignored for 30 years, finally revolted. They protested outside the stadiums. They shamed their owners. The project collapsed in 48 hours. But the idea isn't dead. The desire for more money, for a closed shop, for guaranteed profit, is never dead. The forces that created the league are now threatening to destroy it. So what did we learn from this secret deal? 3 clear takeaways. First, the product is not the sport. The product is the broadcast. He who controls the television rights controls the game. Sky proved that. Second, trickle-down economics is a myth. Wealth doesn't trickle down, it flows up. The 1982 deal consolidated wealth at the very top. It left everyone else to fight for scraps. Third, the game no longer belongs to the fans. It belongs to the broadcasters, the sovereign wealth funds, the billionaires, and the brands. The fans are just the audience. The secret deal of 1990 was a wild success. It achieved everything the Big Five wanted, and more. It made the Premier League the richest, most watched league on earth. But it also created a financial bubble. A bubble of massive wages, huge debts, and soaring prices. A bubble that gets bigger every year. The real question is not how it was built. We know how it was built. The real question is, when will it pop? If you found this story interesting, you know what to do. Hype this video. Like and subscribe.